In at 5, Danica Desert. Danica Desert, located in Ethiopia, is one of the hottest and driest places on the entire planet, with scorching heat that cracks the land and causes migraines and moisture to be sucked from your mouth and eyes. Yeah, this is no place you would ever want to take a trip to. The area is located in the Afar region of northeast Ethiopia, with the climate being described as cruel. However, you will be surprised to know that people do in fact live there and call it home. The Danica Depression is perhaps the hottest place on Earth, with the average year-round temperature reported to be 34.4 degrees Celsius. Making it worse, it only receives 100 to 200 millimeters of rainfall per year, and is one of the lowest places on the entire planet, placing it at 410 feet below sea level. These factors combined, it makes it perhaps one of the most inhospitable environments in the entire world. The weather wasn't enough, the land also houses the lava lake, which is a result of the Eel, an active volcano. The lake is one of only 6 on Earth. People have described the site as something from another planet. There are volcanoes, bubbling lava lakes, multicolored hydrothermal fields, and great salt pans that dazzle the eyes. Yep, it's not the most ideal holiday destination, that's for sure. Coming in at 4, Casa Loma. A legend from my neck of the woods comes the haunting tales of Casa Loma in Toronto, Ontario. Built in 1914, this Gothic-style mansion is now an historic house, museum, and landmark. It was originally constructed as a residence for financier Sir Henry Pellet, but has since become a popular tourist attraction and hot filming spot for movies and television. However, the mansion holds many secrets, from strange apparitions to eerie voices. Casa Loma has its fair share of ghost stories that haunt it, to the point that the castle even offers ghost tours led by Canada's Most Haunted. Many people over the years have reported ghostly apparitions around the grounds and the castle, including that of a man tending to the garden in the indoor conservatory, or even the sound of children's voices when no children are around. However, the most common occurrence is the White Lady, who is known to appear on the second floor as well as the basement of the castle. I quote, "The White Lady is someone we believe to be a maid who worked here in the early 1900s, around the time when about 60,000 people died of influenza. She's been seen in a lot of places by guests or by cleaning or cafeteria staff, as they've been cleaning at the end of the day." Some people have also reported sightings of the former owner, Sir Henry Pellet, and his wife, Lady Mary Pellet, who mediums believe are not trapped on the grounds but are choosing to be there, after they were ousted from their home when they were unable to keep up with the costs. There are also tunnels located on the grounds that lead to the stables, where another notorious ghost is believed to roam, with many people reported feeling someone grab them or pull their hair while in the tunnel. In at 3, Ancient Ram Inn. The Ancient Ram Inn is located in the village of Watton under Edge in Gloucestershire, England, and many folks out there believe it to be one of the most haunted buildings in the country, perhaps even the world. The inn was first built in 1445 and was used by priests who used it to house slave workers who helped construct the St. Mary Church. The land where the inn is built on the intersection of 2 ley lines, which are places that people believe to have high spiritual energy. If you trace the lines, you can follow them all the way through the centre of Stonehenge, and according to many, Stonehenge has energy which travels through the ley lines to feed the paranormal power found in the inn. There are numerous legends and tales about the Ancient Ram Inn, but perhaps the most popular is that of the witch burned at the stake in the 1500s. She was burned for not believing or practicing Christianity, which was sanctioned by the government at the time. And a lot of folks now believe that her spirit haunts one of the rooms of the inn that she supposedly took refuge in before she was captured and killed. Today, that room is called the Witch's Room. Would you dare stay a night in the room? In at 2, Snake Island. Now this is truly my worst nightmare. The research for this was truly painful to say the least. There are some truly breathtaking places in Brazil, with one in particular located 90 miles off of the coast of Sao Paulo, seemingly being one of those places. However, most would never dream of going there, as it's infested with between 2,000 and 4,000 golden lancehead vipers, one of the deadliest snakes in the entire world. The venom from these snakes can kill a person in under an hour, with terrifying stories hailing from the island. Supposedly, a fisherman who landed on the island in search of bananas was discovered days later in his boat, dead in a pool of blood, with snake bites covering his body. No thank you. Some people claim that snakes were put on the island by pirates in order to protect their gold. However, the truth is that the island's population of snakes evolved over thousands of years without human intervention. 11,000 years ago, the sea levels rose enough to isolate the island, which caused the snakes to evolve on a different path than ones we would find on any mainland. Due to the lack of ground-level predators, the snakes were able to reproduce rapidly, with them evolving incredibly potent and efficient venom, which is reported to be 3 to 5 times stronger than any mainland snakes. Yep, would you dare go to Snake Island? Your answer should always be no. And finally, coming in at number 1, the door to hell. The Darvaza gas crater is perhaps one of the most haunting images to look at, and the closest thing to the gates of hell we're ever going to see, depending on what you believe in. Also known as the Crater of Fire, there are thousands of images online displaying the fires erupting in the middle of the desert. It's bewitching, but incredibly deadly. So, backstory. In 1971 in the Catacombs Desert, Soviet geologists began to drill into a cavern filled with natural gas. During this time a horrible accident occurred and equipment and transport fell down deep into the hole. Thankfully no one was injured, however there was gas coming out of the hole. The team of course feared that the hole would release some kind of poisonous gases, so they opted to burn it off. However, this didn't go according to plan as the flames never died out. In 2004, the Turkmenistan president issued an order for the Darvaza village to be moved for safety reasons, and the fire still burns to this day, with no one quite knowing when or if it will ever burn out. Of course, the large burning hole has drawn in thousands of tourists from across the globe, and gazing upon it is truly eerie to say the least. A large flaming hole with nothing but desert surrounding it, it is truly like the gates of hell. Would you guys check it out? In at 5, North Youngest Road, Bolivia. The Youngest Road is a cycle route about 60 kilometers long, linking the city of La Paz and the Youngest region of Bolivia. It was built back in the 1930s, and due to its steep slopes, narrow single track, and the lack of guardrails, the road was considered too dangerous and is considered to be one of the most dangerous places in the world. The North Youngest Road weaves through the Amazon rainforest at a height of more than 15,000 feet. When you consider that fact, as well as the 12-foot wide single lane, you can understand why the stretch of highway has earned the nickname the Death Road. The North Youngest Road used to see 200 to 300 annual deaths. However, it has become more of a destination for adventurous mountain bikers, with the amount of deaths per year slowly declining. That fact aside, would you ever dare travel along North Youngest Road? You let me know. In at 4, Agoro Japan. In Agoro Japan there is a tiny Japanese village with a very notable feature. A life-size doll population that heavily outnumbers the human population by 100 to 1. This bizarre trend began thanks to local toymaker Tsukimi Ayano, who returned home to a small village and faced crippling loneliness after discovering most of the residents had moved away or died, resulting in her populating the village with life-size dolls as replicas of her former neighbours. Very creepy. You can find these creepy doppelgangers across the village in various positions, from fishermen sitting on riverbanks, students in classrooms, and elderly couples resting on benches. The dolls are made of straw, and every single one of them is located in the place where she would resemble that person. At the time of this recording, there are around 350 dolls and fewer than 40 living humans in Agoro, making it an incredibly quirky but terrifying place to visit. In at 3, Hanging Coffins of Sagada, Philippines. In Sagada, Philippines, if you wish to visit the dead, it's quite the difficult task, considering you have to look up as opposed to 6 feet under. Yep, that's right, the people of the region aren't buried but are instead placed in coffins that are attached to the sides of cliffs, hundreds of feet in the air. The bizarre tradition goes back thousands of years, with people carving out their own coffins before their death and then are ultimately hoisted up next to their ancestors. Now, it has been said that the hanging coffins are a means of preventing bodies from being taken by beasts, as well as to bless the soul eternally. The Bo people of southern China viewed the mountain cliffs as a stairway to heaven and believed that by placing the coffins up high, the deceased would be closer to heaven. Another theory is that having the coffins placed so high is to prevent animals from being able to reach them. You can find hanging coffins not only in Sagada but also in Donglan County and Yingtan City. Coming in at 2, Belitz-Hillstatten Hospital. Belitz-Hillstatten may look to you like an old and disturbing hospital, and guess what? That's because it is. From 1898 to 1930, this hospital served as a tuberculosis sanatorium that also housed victims of World War I that were injured by guns or mustard gas. Its most famous patient, however, was a young German soldier named Adolf Hitler, who had been injured in the leg during the war. During the Second World War, the hospital went on to be a major treatment center for Nazi soldiers, and it was also used as a Soviet military hospital from 1945 up until the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now, as of today, the majority of the hospital is abandoned, however a handful of the wards are used as a neurological rehabilitation center. The parts that are abandoned have given way to nature and vandals, making the place look like something straight out of a horror movie. Definitely not somewhere you would want to visit on vacation. And finally, coming in at number 1, Capuchin Catacombs, Sicily, Italy. In Sicily you can find one of the many catacombs that are located around the world, from Salzburg to Paris, but the Capuchin Catacombs certainly take the cake. The macabre space was created all the way back in the late 16th century when the cemetery at the Capuchin monastery became overrun. Prior to this, religious men were originally supposed to be the exclusive residents of the catacombs before it became a free-for-all, after word got out about the natural mummification processes occurring in the space, making it a symbol for local citizens to earn a final resting spot there. As of today, the catacombs now contain around 8,000 bodies that have been divided into separate corridors, including one for religious figures, one for professional men, one for children, and even one for virgins. Good for you, virgins. Coming in at number 5, Eastern State Penitentiary, Pennsylvania. Also known as ESP, this is a former prison located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and was operational from 1829 up until 1971. The penitentiary is said to have refined the revolutionary system of separate incarceration first pioneered at the Walnut Street Jail, which emphasized principles of reform rather than punishment. Some of the world's most notorious criminals were also locked up in these walls, including Al Capone and bank robber Willie Sutton. The prison is currently a US National Historic Landmark, which is open to the public as a museum for tours. As of right now, the prison is known to be one of America's most haunted spots, with more than 1,000 people dying there before it closed in 1971. Now, although executions didn't take place, at least 2 guards and many inmates were murdered over the years. Saying that, this is not a place you want to be trapped inside, what with its disturbing history and reported hauntings, but if you feel brave enough, you can take one of the many tours of the former prison to see if you might stumble across a previous resident, maybe even Al Capone himself. In at number 4, Cahills Crossing, Australia. Cahills Crossing is an infamous feeding ground for crocodiles, as well as being one of the most dangerous bodies of water in the country. Not to mention, it is a road, one that many drivers have become trapped on. According to reports, a crocodile once decapitated a man there, and back in January 2017 another man was killed. It is said that each year dozens of drivers attempt to make it across the submerged road, resulting in a handful of them being washed into the infested waters. Rangers conducted a survey of the river and counted around 120 crocodiles in the 6-kilometer stretch around the Cahills Crossing. Over the years, the crossing has become popular with both tourists and fishermen, despite there being extensive warning signs around the crossing. However, the most infamous attack at the crossing took place in 1987 and involved 40-year-old Kerry McLaughlin, who was fishing with his friends when he was taken and decapitated by a crocodile. Mere moments before the attack, this photo was taken. Another man disappeared while wading through the crossing as well. His body was recovered 2 kilometers downstream. Ultimately, you do not want to get trapped at this crossing because the chances of you getting swept away by the waters and into the jaws of a crocodile are very, very high. In at number 3 we have the Blue Hole, Egypt. The Blue Hole is a submarine sinkhole located just north of Dahab, Egypt, on the coast of the Red Sea. The hole has a maximum depth of 328 feet, with a shallow opening known as the Saddle and a long tunnel known as the Arch, whose ceiling is at depth of 181 feet. The Blue Hole is a popular location for free diving because of the depth directly accessible from shore, as well as the lack of current. However, with many diving spots there have been fatalities. Diving through the Arch, a submerged tunnel, is an extreme dive that has resulted in many accidents and fatalities. However, the number of deaths has not been recorded, but one source does speculate that 130 divers died during the 15-year period from 1997 to 2012, averaging over 8 per year. This includes snorkeling deaths at the surface unrelated to diving the Arch. Now, the main reasons suggested for the accident rate include the following. Notoriety of the site attracts divers who lack qualification. The accessibility of the site in warm waters making it seem more benign than it is, as well as the temptation to dive on a single gas tank. One notable death was that of Yuri Lipsky, a 22-year-old Russian-Israeli diving instructor who was exploring the hole on April 28, 2000. He carried with him a camera, which filmed his death. The video shows Yuri in an involuntary and uncontrolled descent, eventually landing on the seafloor where he panics, removes his regulator, and tries to fill his buoyancy compensator but is unable to rise. Since then, the Blue Hole has been nicknamed Divers Lover's Cemetery. Coming in at number 2, we have Island of Dolls, Mexico. The Island of Dolls is located in the center of Mexico City and features many dolls of various styles placed there originally by former owner of the island, Julian Santana Barrera. He believed that the dolls helped to chase away the spirit of a girl who drowned years ago. According to the legend, the girl drowned and was found entangled among the lilies of the canal on the banks of the Santampa Chinampas. Following this, Julian began to experience inexplicable situations. So terrified, he placed dolls that he found in the garbage around the island with the idea that they would scare the soul of the girl away, who would often cry out, "I want my doll." Julian also found a doll floating nearby and, assuming it belonged to the deceased girl, hung it from a tree as a sign of respect. Following this though, he began to hear whispers, footsteps, and anguished wails in the darkness, and even though his hut, hidden deep in the woods, was miles away from civilization. He would go on to spend more than 50 years hanging more and more dolls, some missing body parts all over the island in an attempt to appease the girl. Now, Julian Santana Barrera died back in 2001 of a heart attack, with some saying he was close to the same spot where the girl drowned when she died. However, this information has been proven false. Since his death, the island has become a popular tourist attraction. However, you don't want to find yourself trapped in the island, with many reporting a sense of unease and an ominous silence. A woman told the Mail Online, I quote, "At the end of the journey I was struck by a surreal vision of hundreds, maybe thousands of dolls hanging from trees on the tiny island. It was the creepiest place I have ever visited." And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Catacombs, Paris, France. Paris is one of the most romantic cities in the world. However, it has a dark side that exists below the surface: the catacombs. The catacombs of Paris are underground ossuaries in Paris which hold the remains of around 6 million people in a small tunnel network built to consolidate Paris' stone quarries. Extending south from the Gate of Hell, the catacombs were created as part of the effort to eliminate the city's overflowing cemeteries, with them opting to build a graveyard underground instead, which is incredibly creepy. Preparations began back in 1774, not long after a series of gruesome St. Innocent Cemetery Quarter basement wall collapses, which added a sense of urgency to the build. It was built and the remains from most cemeteries were transferred to the catacombs, which remained largely forgotten until it became a novelty place for concerts and private events in the early 19th century. It is now a popular tourist attraction and a place for urban explorers who want to explore the tunnels, even the ones that don't show up on city maps. However, for anyone who has seen the movie As Above So Below, you will know why the catacombs is not the most ideal place to be trapped in. Its tunnels are winding and endless, with each turn looking identical to the last. If you don't know where you're going, you are bound to get lost and trapped beneath the surface of the city with the 6 million other deceased residents. That is terrifying.
Number 5. Chateau de Malsiger. A petite and quaint fortress in southern France, sitting atop a 170-meter drive uphill. Its ruins now nothing but rock and rubble, but once a safe house for the Cathars. The Cathar vision of the universe was dualist, in that good and light confronts evil and darkness. Right? Pretty straightforward. Very Jedi of them. This belief led them to follow a very disciplined way of life. Before, of course, they were decimated from the Catholic Church, initiated by Pope Innocent III. Innocent, huh? The ruins nicknamed now Satan's Synagogue. Yeah, nice and light right off the top, huh, Kyle? Described as one of the last Cathar castles and has been listed as a monument historique by the French Ministry of Culture. Cathar, from Greek meaning pure. These people were devout. In 1233, the site became the seat and head of the Cathar Church. The fort roughly housed about 500 people during this time. In 1242, a military of about 10,000 troops fought against the castle that was held up by only 100 Cathars. So like very Jedi all of a sudden. The siege lasted 9 months. Until 2 years later, the castle finally surrendered. North of 200 Cathars were burned in a giant bonfire unless they renounced and changed their faith, some taking the Cathar vow just weeks before this. Those who renounced the Cathar faith were allowed to leave, but the castle itself destroyed. The field below, now famously known to have been where hundreds of men and women were burned alive. The apparent bonfire that happened sparked a curse from the Cathar peoples. Legends of these ruins say any person who strays off the marked footpaths of these ruins and loses their footing will drop off of every side of the citadel in the sky. Sounds more like a metaphor to me than a curse. Number 4. Kalau Papa. In 1866, during the reign of Kamehameha V, Hawaiian officials passed a law designating this island the official site for patients affected with leprosy. Kalaupapa, a small peninsula in the north shore of Molokai, has quite a bitter and spooky history. The king exiled those who contracted Hansen's disease here, noting it was the ideal spot secluded and surrounded by the highest cliffs in the world. The peninsula served as a natural outdoor prison, accessible only by one steep path by foot or boat to shore. About 1,200 families were exiled to quarantine here. At the time, the disease wasn't really understood, believing it to be very incurable. Whisked off and locked away amid paradise in total isolation. No amenities, no buildings, or even potable water. Known by historians who visit it as, quote, the pit of hell itself. And apparently the most cursed place on earth. Yeah, I didn't know that. With its grim history of loneliness, despair, and death, it's not really surprising at all that Kalaupapa is said to be one of the most haunted places in all of Hawaii. This island was basically a death sentence for those on it. Shackles, cages, caves. Sounds about right to be haunted by the afterlife. Number 3. The Vanishing Village. Way up north, a village named after a bountiful, massive freshwater lake in Canada's Nunavut. 1932. A Canadian fur trapper and explorer went to the village of Anjakuni Lake. The people's known there for their markets of elaborate fish and extensive wine. This village was a staple for most on the map. Joe LaBelle, a well-known fur trapper and well-known in the village, had an otherworldly sight when he arrived. He arrived and sensed something was a little wrong, a little too quiet, too foggy. He found that the village was completely emptied and deserted, even though there were lots of signs of life still present. Campfires blazing, pots still boiling, doors were even open, and food out waiting to be served. Thousands of Anjakuni villagers had simply vanished. He sent a telegraph to the closest RCMP office and told them about his account. And here's the scary part. They launched an official investigation which was never solved. They took a testimony from another trapper and his 2 sons who said they saw a large cylindrical object transform into a bullet shape before flying directly over Anjakuni Lake. At the village, the police found the kayaks were still on the beach, meals still in the early stages of rot, and apparently the headstones were even stacked neatly in piles on either side of the graves. Okay? To this day, there's no proper explanation for this mass disappearance of people and the hundreds of empty graves. Number 2, Skeleton Lake. Deep within the Himalayas of India lays the bay of an ancient lake, shrouded by an ancient mystery, Rupkund Lake, famously known as Skeleton Lake. It was rediscovered by the British Forest Rangers in 1942, and what they found was pretty jarring. Hundreds of ancient human skeletons found at the edge of the lake. Investigations led some to think that this was a catastrophe of some sort, or the remains of a legendary event where a group was suddenly killed in a violent storm around the 9th century. Nope. 3 different groups of people died here all at different times. It's not located on or near a trade route. No evidence of any ancient bacteria pathogen, ruling out diseases. Yeah, this one's really weird. One group of people had genetics to present-day South Asia, while the other group related to the people of Central Europe. And finally, a group particularly from the Greek island of Crete. But how? All here? They found the bones and deaths were genetically separated in time by as much as 1,000 years difference. Wooden artifacts, iron spearheads, even slippers and jewelry were found by the National Geographic team who studied 30 skeletons in 2003. Skin still on some of them. Ugh. 300 people have been found so far. Legend goes, Parvati, a supreme goddess, cursed the kingdom, unleashing drought and disaster upon them. She sent down a blizzard of hail and whirlwind which swept the people into the lake. Their skeletons are a warning to those who disrespect the goddess. I mean, maybe. The skeletons are visible in the clear water of the shallow lake during 1 month when the ice melts. That's terrifying. I'm gonna chicken out right now and just never visit this place. Just show up and get Jack Skellingtoned? Are you kidding me? No way, dude. And number 1, the City of Screams. Top of my relaxing trip list, Golgotha City, Afghanistan. Peaceful once as it was the capital of the Gorid people, until Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire seized it in about the 12th century. Apparently legend goes its ruler, Jalaluddin Mangburnu, fought back and apparently killed Khan's grandson in battle. Yeah, probably not a good idea. In 1221, Khan sent his 15-year-old Mudu Khan here to claim and siege, who in turn was shot and killed with an arrow, precipitating the siege of Bamyan. At first, the city held strong, but was apparently sold out by the ruler's daughter, who, according to legend, betrayed the castle's secret entrance, sharing and consorting with the enemy. expecting to be rewarded. Her and her people were unfortunately slaughtered. And the ruins, cursed, of course. And the ruins, cursed, of course. The Russians, the Taliban, and the Americans have all used these ruins as fighting posts over the years, as this place hasn't been lived in since. But through them is apparently very haunted, the ruins subject to those who still hear the screams of the fallen. Yeah. Terrifying. Haunting sounds of screaming and warfare are echoed here, thus giving it its famous name of the City of Screams. Dark horseback figures to even full-on uniformed specters are seen atop the rubble. Yeah, I just say we just avoid this place completely and just kind of back away slowly out of respect, you know?